Hello everybody. Now this is actually my first video in quite a while. I've unfortunately been quite ill with a certain virus that was doing the rounds in 2020 and 2021, and thankfully due to the various vaccines that I've received, it was nowhere near as bad as it could be. But that's probably also because it has mutated to be a lot less virulent than it once was. On to today's video. So this is a Ferguson 3V32, also known as a JVC 7655 or an ITT 8924, I think. Other clones are available from Telefunken, probably Nordmend as well, though I've never seen any Nordmend ones. Now, I got this deck quite some time ago and it works, but it's not particularly happy about working. Let me show you what I mean. So I'll just plug it into a convenient plug. There we go. So there's no problems with it turning on and no issues with it coming out of standby. So I've got a suitable test cassette. If I put the test cassette in, you can see it's very sluggish getting the cassette in, so I need to replace this little belt here and rough up these rollers. If I go to play, thankfully lacing isn't a problem, and it also plays back as well. But if I do a fast forward search, you get that horrible noise as the idler is trying to make contact with the take-up spool. Now it's actually quite possible that the machine just needs a bit of a run-in because it hasn't been used for so long. It's quite possible I just need to run it in a little bit. So in other words, actually just make some use of it. So let's see if that works at all. Let's try rewind. Exactly the same sort of effect on rewind. So what I'll do is I'll actually do a fast forward. You can really hear it there. So there's definitely a problem with that idler. I do need to replace the belt on here as well. Now, somewhere amongst my various bits and pieces, I do have a selection of belts and idlers which should do the job. I think I've even got possibly some idler tyres which might work as well, although I'm not sure what these are actually for. However, I might be able to use those idler tyres rather than having to replace the idler itself. You do need to remove it in order to replace the idler tyre, and that's basically what the idler looks like. So you've got the idler tyre, you have the spring there, and then you've got this arrangement here which allows it to pivot. It should not sound like that. So what I will do is I will eject the cassette, and this is where it will have a lot of trouble ejecting, so we might have to help it along a little bit. Or I could do the other alternative, which is turn the machine off. I've already removed these 4 screws, and I could just lift out the entire assembly like so, which with a cassette in it is a little bit difficult to do. A bit easier once you've removed. So it's actually easier once you've got the flap out the way. And there you go, there's your cassette, and you can then tease it up like so, and then tease it out like so. So we need to get to here to replace this belt. That doesn't actually look too difficult because you have a little circlip there, and we just need a small screwdriver to remove said circlip. So I'll just move the deck over a little bit, grab a small screwdriver, and a small screwdriver, so you just need a flat blade to do this. There's a flat blade. There we go. And what I'll do, I'll actually zoom in on the action. There we go. So all you need to do is just gently prise this off, like so. Once that's off, this rod here will actually go all the way down and out, and it'll give you enough leeway to get that belt off and out. And there's the belt. So off camera, I'm just going to find a suitably sized replacement. So I think I've actually got a suitable replacement belt. So I'm going to slip that onto the motor. Excuse me. Loop it over the other idler, loop it around, and we're in. And then all I need to do is just push. It's taking up the tension on the belt slightly. Just push it up through there, and there you go. Now all you need to do is refit your circlip. Whoops. So up you come. So it might even help if you just rest it on something. Finger will do the job, probably. And then the circlip just slots into place. Now with the circlip, I tend to just push that down a little bit so it's actually flush with this here, and then just push it on like so, and then you've actually got the circlip in place. So you push the little rod down, and then the circlip pops into place because you've made the little clip for the circlip flush with that. Now, just to obviously finish it off a little bit, just give these a bit of a rough up, because unfortunately there is no replacement for these, and this is just what they tend to do over the years. Now, rubber renew might work. I have used rubber renew on this deck before, but I'm not sure if that's actually contributed to some of the problems that it's now having, certainly with that take up spool, rewind spool idler. There we go. Okay, let's fit that back into the machine. There you go, so I've zoomed in a little bit on the action. I will be removing this again because obviously I want to do some work on his idler. But what I want to do is to put this in. So it goes in basically, so you get this down like that, and then Once that's sort of in place there, the rest of it should slot into place as well. Now, the end sensor does get in the way slightly, so you just need to be aware of that. It is a little bit fiddly to actually get it in. In fact, it's easier, thinking about it, to drop it in vertically, like so, then come back like that, and then there you go, and then that slots into place. So if I just reconnect power connector, and hopefully now there you go, that's a lot better. So the reason why it stopped midway is because of these rollers here. So these are basically the first ones to actually go. They're the first ones to cause you problems, and that is the symptom that you get. The only remedy I can possibly think of is I could put some idlers around them, so I'd need to pop it off that end, pop some idlers around them and do it that way. There is potentially enough springiness to allow that to happen. But you might actually find the more you use a deck like this, the better it actually gets. You don't even need a particularly thick idler around it, just even say a washer or an O-ring of some description might do the trick. Now I've actually got, funnily enough, a selection of air conditioning O-rings for car air conditioning systems, and if I just pop that open, you will see that I've actually got a number of different O-rings in there. So I'm going to pop this out again. I'll just eject the cassette. Once we've fixed the first issue, and we'll now have a look at issue number 2. So forward, up, up, out. And let's get that back into view. Let's take a look if we can do anything about these. So here are the O-rings. As you can see, there is a wide range of sizes to suit all air conditioning, automotive air conditioning needs. This is my cassette cradle, and what I'm going to try to do is to pop off this spring down there. Then what I can then do is bring this up, and that actually gives me quite a bit of access, quite a bit of unexpected access actually. So I'll pop off this circlip carefully because I don't want to lose it. Okay, I'll pop that back so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. That means I can get that off. And now I can try out some O-rings. So that's going to be, let's have a look, this sort of size. So I'll just roll it down and then literally just roll the O-ring onto the roller. Center it up. There you go. Use the same size for the other one. Actually, I'll put 2 on there. Or should I go for 3? let's go for 3 on each. So you go over, then down and onto there. There you go, so that's 3. And we'll do another 3. Down to here. So 1, 2, 3. Now all I need to do is pop this back on. That's the little cradle that sits in there. And I just need to pop this circlet back in place. Ow. Which I probably want to do with the flat edge of a screwdriver. There we go. There we go. Now I should be able to feed that down. Put this over and down. Hook that up down the bottom. As you can see, hook it onto there, and there you go. Whoops, that's popped out. So I'll just pop that back in again. Oh, that's my own silly fault for moving that too much. But that actually serves to keep it in place as well. I think actually a little bit's broken off it at some point, so that's probably why I'm having a little bit of trouble with it as well. So the size of O-ring that I used was 12 by 2. 12 by 2. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if that's 12 millimeters width by 2 millimeters thick. That's probably how it's measured. Right, let's get this back in, give it another test. So here we go. So down. So yeah, down at the front. Then there we go. And there. Power back in. Power on. Out of standby. Grab a cassette, which I had just now. There it is. And not great, not terrible. Let's see how it is ejecting. Well, it's better ejecting, it actually throws the tape out. So it still needs a bit of persuasion, but nowhere near as bad as it was. And in fact, that might improve with use. So let's power it off again. Let's unplug this. Let's get this out of the way. And let's turn our attention to the idler. And I'll get you over to have a look at the idler so you can see exactly what's going on action wise. So the problem might not be with this idler itself, the problem is with this spindle. Do you see the actual plastic coating has cracked and started to come away. So that's not going to do us any good. So I'll unhook the little spring for the idler, and I will see if I can move that out the way. Now to do that, it looks like I'm going to have to loosen this off. And this is the brake assembly. It actually looks like one of the, you can see it there. As this spring here has actually come away from there, so that is almost permanently on a brake. So what I'm going to try to do is just to hook that back over there. Which is easier said than done. So I can actually get my finger onto that and just... You don't want to pull the spring too far because you don't want to stretch the spring. So that would not be a good thing. What you might be able to do though is take this off like so. Then hook. There you go, hook the spring over manually. Now a lot of people don't like these older decks because they're cumbersome and unreliable. Now I like them because they're a lot more reliable than people will give them credit for, especially if you keep them maintained and keep them in good order. So if you keep them serviced, the majority of unreliability issues with these older decks is everything that's rubber, basically. And to a lesser extent, the video head drums as well, because the heads on the drums are not as hard wearing as head drums in machines which are a lot newer. So there is actually in the service manual, there are recommendations of how often you should replace the head drums. So you do a clean every 3,000 hours, and then you do a complete replacement every 10,000 hours. I need to get those exact figures, so citation needed, but that does seem to be the sort of general rule for these things. So that's off now, and I can probably get this back into place easily enough. There we go. And I'll just screw that back down. I'll hook that spring back over. Now let's see if that improves anything at all, because we've solved a couple of problems there. We've put this spring here back to where it should be. We've removed a duff bit of plastic there on the motor spindle itself, and we've done a couple of other bits and bobs whilst in there. So let's get this back into place. There we go. Perfect. Grab our cassette. hit play. And that's now a lot quieter as well. If I do fast forward, that is struggling, but there is the possibility that with use that'll get better. So rewind search, yeah, same sort of issue, but it does unlace. So let's hit fast forward, and all I'm going to do now is just give this a bit of exercise. So I'm going to full fast forward and then full rewind, and once we've done that we'll get a television set out and we'll actually give this a test, because I've just realised that this is actually a long play. This is actually a cassette that's got some long play materials on it, and I've never played back a long play cassette on this machine, and this machine does support long play. So be back shortly. So I've actually just completed a full fast forward cycle, and it's now tripped into a rewind cycle, which is exactly what we wanted. And as you can see, that supply spool is doing quite a good job. It's still spinning quite nicely. So in a moment we will give this a test. So you can actually see I've just put the this RF shield back on. It's always essential that you refit these, as they are there for a reason. That's to basically shield the video heads and other assemblies from RF interference. You've got a nice little sort of earthing strap there that you need to make sure is in place. And yeah, all we'll do now is we'll get the lid back on and then we'll give it a test and see how it goes. So as an aside, according to these date markers, this was made in 1983 in March, because the first, or it could be February, although I assume that third one is probably March. On March the 22nd, I think. Or certainly this casing was made on that date. Whether the machine was made on that date, I'm not 100% certain. What it does suggest is this machine was probably sold in the summer of 1983, which is quite cool. And this one was made, so there were some that were made in Japan. This one is, I think, a later deck, because it was made in the UK. Earlier ones were made in Japan, and later ones were actually made in the UK. There was also some other Ferguson decks that were made in West Germany, as it was. So they would have been made at a factory probably that would have also badged them up as Telefunkens, Nordmens, Sabres, and whatever brands they had at the time. There we go. So I can actually hear that's rewinding quite nicely. There we are. Right, we'll be back shortly. So here we go. This is, excuse the white balance. Haven't been able to get it quite right with this particular camera. As you can see, yeah, I'm sort of manipulating it there, but I can't seem to get rid of the yeah, even if I drop the ISO down to the lowest the ISO will go, I can't get rid of the overly bright element on the picture. That's slightly better. But as you can see, this is a long play recording, as can be denoted by the long play lamp being illuminated, and it's giving a very good account of itself. So if I just do a pause, yeah, even pause isn't terrible. but this is what you get when you've got separate heads for long play and standard play. Fast forward search does now appear to be working again, as you can see. Rewind search also working. So with this machine, it needed some very minor repairs internally. It needed a sleeve that was on the motor for some reason removing, and that has actually restored functionality of this particular deck. Now this set here, this little Ferguson, you may remember this from a video I did some time ago where I had a very flat tube on this little set, and I did something I don't like doing because I'd rather use a BK to do the job, but I shorted out the heater resistor, and I shorted it out for approximately 3 minutes or so, left the set on noise, so just left the set on, say, an empty channel like that, and oops, tuner's a little bit squiffy. Let's just get that tuned in again. There we go. So there is a bit of tuner drift. Now, that's better. So after leaving it on for about 3 minutes or so, that seemed to be enough just to give it a bit of a bump and actually burn off some of the material left on the cathodes, because that isn't bad at all. It's given a pretty good accounter for itself, actually. Sound wise, I won't go for too long, but
Hey, well, Bert Stanton's feet.
Yeah, we got sound, and yeah, doing well. So that is another deck ready to fight another day, so to speak. And there we are. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all very much for taking the time to watch, and I hope everybody is well. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon.